Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and I am so excited to be celebrating 10 years of meaningful conversations with you. As we step into our new primetime hour, it's such an honor to share this exciting new chapter with you. So whether you're starting your day out, headed to work, or listening from wherever you are, this hour is designed to bring you thoughtful dialogue, fresh insight, and inspiring stories so you can make every moment count. So thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive in. We're here today with special guest, Niyc Pidgeon, who's here to share with us her book, One More Day. Find strength and resilience through your darkest times with life-saving tools from positive psychology. So when everything feels like it's just too much, what actually helps you make it through one more day? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Niyc Pidgeon is an award-winning positive psychologist, TEDx and keynote speaker, business mentor, and author of books Now Is Your Chance and One More Day. She's the founder of the Positive Psychology Coach Academy Certification Program, is known as a leader in integrating positive psychology for business, and is on a mission to help 1 billion people become happier and healthier with positive psychology. So welcome to the show, Niyc Pidgeon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
My goodness, what a great honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. So what inspired you to write this?
I mean, it was born from my own personal journey and personal experience of having lost 3 of my best friends who died by suicide, and also my professional experience as a positive psychologist. Now, I never thought that I would become a positive psychologist, which is the science of happiness, and be a positive psychologist that is obsessed with saving lives. Traditionally, those two things don't go together, and we're focused more in positive psychology on how we can go from good to great. So it was only through those challenging, difficult, rock bottom experiences that I was able to apply the science that I've worked with for so long in such a different context.
Well, I am so grateful you wrote this book. It's such a profound read. And one of the things I want to touch on is the title itself, One More Day. What does that truly mean for somebody in their darkest moments?
I think when you're suffering, and I'll speak for myself of my own experience, it can be so challenging to think about a big goal or getting the career promotion or launching the business because it feels like the walls are closing in. So my own practice found myself grasping for something that felt possible, something that felt doable, and something that gave me that hope and that feeling that actually I could keep going. So the title, One More Day, it's the idea that we don't have to focus on this big mountain to climb that it sometimes feels like. We just have to do the small steps and do the tiny things that can move us a little bit closer, a little bit further forwards, and we can just take it one more day.
Well, I have to say, I'm so sorry for your loss. I know just in losing people, how difficult that is. And so I just want to say I'm so sorry about that.
Thank you. I know it's part of life, and I think that's what the energy and the message within One More Day really is. This is something that and I'm really grateful. I really appreciate you being willing to bring this conversation forwards today because it's something that previously is taboo or people are too scared or too uncomfortable to talk about. But I think what happened in the pandemic was everybody started to realize the importance of mental health because we were so isolated and we didn't have the human connection that we need to thrive. So psychology is become a mainstream conversation. It's something that is now cool to focus on your mental health. And I'm honestly so grateful for that because I know the power of positive psychology to save lives. And actually, this is a conversation and they're tools for every single person. This is not something that we focus on when we're in crisis or someone we know is in crisis. These are the simple things that we can do every day to make sure that we never get there.
In your book, you share these core principles: hope, devotion, and connection. Why are they so important, and why is that structured in that way?
I believe that we need frameworks and we need simple steps to follow because what happens when you're in a place of having a difficult day is everything that you once knew goes out of the window. And it's really hard to remember the things that actually serve and support us. So the practice of finding hope, actually devoting yourself to yourself, and then connecting with others, that's all grounded in science. And on the dark days, sometimes hope is the only single thing that someone might have to hold on to. So it's like that light at the end of the tunnel. So it has to start from that place. You have to know and recognize and believe and trust that hope is actually something that works. And I talk about that in my TED talk. I talk about that there's scientific findings that show that we once thought that we were wired for helplessness. And actually, that science has been turned on its head, and we're actually wired for hope. So that's where it has to start. The devotion is just making it your daily practice to keep going one more day, to pick up a tiny tool, to do something that can make you feel a tiny little bit better, okay? And notice that those micro actions shift your state. And then the connection is connection with yourself, connection with a higher power and purpose, but also recognizing that social connection, having places that we belong, and being willing to have conversations is actually the thing that is proven. It's the most proven thing in the science that actually saves lives.
So, you describe suicide as a behavior that can be changed. How does that perspective shift the conversation around prevention?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a great dinner table guest that makes everybody feel awkward when they realize what I do as a career, because there's a certain degree of suicide prevention bringing up a awkwardness in people. But I always respond to that and I say, writing this book has really been the most joy-filled experience of my entire life, because what is more hopeful than having an understanding and seeing science that proves that this actually works, that we can save lives. So I think knowing that suicide is the most preventable cause of death actually allows us to rally energy and motivation for that cause. Because previously it seemed like the statistics are showing that suicides are worse than ever before. There's 700,000 suicides a year. There's also, for every one person that dies by suicide, 135 family, friends, people in community are negatively impacted by that. But when we find out that suicide is the most preventable cause of death, and when we learn that actually for every one person that uses positive psychology, 135 people are positively impacted, we can start to look at, well, what if we put our attention more on what we can do and what is going right rather than what is going wrong? And if we start to take a positive psychology approach to life, then we can activate that positive ripple effect that affects 135 people for every one person that uses a tool. That feels really empowering and really, really hopeful.
I would say that that does. And one of the things I really like about your book is you have kind of sprinkled throughout the book these tiny tools. Why are small, simple actions so powerful in moments of crisis?
Mm. I think because it feels so difficult to do anything that is going to take you 30 minutes or something that feels like it just doesn't feel accessible in those moments. So simple actions like going out for a walk or drinking a glass of water or sending a gratitude text to someone, it creates a micro shift in your mood and your sense of capability that actually, one by one, step by step, that all compounds over time. So it doesn't have to be one big, bold action. Sometimes the most powerful intervention is actually just putting one foot in front of the other.
It seems that so many people struggle with like a negative bias. So, how can someone begin to interrupt that pattern when they feel it like automatically?
Yeah, so you might notice that either you or someone that you love talks about how everything's going wrong or how hard things are, how hard things feel. That can be very normal for us as humans because our brain defaults to a negative set point. It feels hard times more powerfully. It remembers challenges more easily. So we actually need to reset that balance. And we know that you actually need three positives for every one negative to shift into a flourishing and thriving state. So if you actually practice this in your day to day, for every time that you say, oh, everything's going wrong, or I'm not doing well here, or this feels really difficult, if you mindfully replace those thoughts and feelings with everything is going right for me. Everything is working out. I'm always doing my best. But you remind yourself to do it three times. What that does is, first of all, it puts the attention on honestly recognizing how perhaps we're not very kind to ourselves. But then it also helps you to remember how often you need to replace that with a positive. So it can actually start the action step of you doing it and remembering to do it.
That's such a powerful piece. And one of the things you also emphasize is that suicidal thoughts can be temporary. So, how can understanding that help someone make it through a very difficult moment?
Yeah, I remember a friend sharing with me that it was during the pandemic actually as well. She was struggling with her mental health, and it got so bad that she went up onto the rooftop in her apartment in New York, and she decided that she didn't want to be here anymore. And before she was about to leave us, she reached for her phone because she wanted to send a note to her husband and to her daughter, and she couldn't find her phone. So she was searching because she knew that she wanted to have this last kind of communication and I love you. And by the time that she had found her phone, she didn't want to take her own life anymore. So what we see is that these thoughts are fleeting. And if you can actually increase the distance, so the time and the space between the thought and the action, then you can prevent the suicide from happening. So this might come through in having a safe person that you could call to have a conversation with. It might come with different laws and policies that get put into place that have barriers on bridges or lock boxes for guns. There's a lot of different ways, but it's remembering to ask the question, how can I actually increase the time and the space between the thought and the action, either for myself or for someone that I love? And that can make all the difference between life and death.
You have what's called a hope map in your book as one of the tools that people can use. What is this, and how can people use this in their daily lives?
I mean, it sounds great, doesn't it? The hope map. So this is it's a structured goal setting tool is the simplest way to describe it. And what I love about positive psychology is it's not just think positive and life will be rosy. It's actually an evidence-based science of what it is about us that makes us work, makes us happy, makes us successful. And the hope map is a proven way to guarantee that you reach your goals. So it boosts your level of optimism, which not only helps you reach the goal, but it protects and improves your mental health in the process. So the way to work with a hope map, there's six different steps. The first thing that you do is you get clear on an intention or an outcome or a goal that you want to accomplish. Then you look at what are multiple different ways that you could reach this goal. So, what happens with goal setting is often we'll say, what is the perfect way that we can reach the goal? Or we'll say, shall I take route A or route B? And that can get us really stuck because now we're in this conflict within ourselves of, shall I go this way or that way? And it's really difficult for me to decide. You can apply something called divergent thinking theory instead. And this is coming up with 10 different fun, creative ways to reach the goal. It doesn't matter if some of them are silly or some of them might not actually work out. The point of the exercise is to make it feel fun and to start to access different pathways within your brain. You're then asking the question, what might get in the way? So, what might an obstacle be? And that might be time, or it might be access to information. What we do often in setting goals is we think about everything that can go right, and we miss this step of what might go wrong. Because then we ask the next question, okay, if we have these potential obstacles, what are all of the pathways through them? How might we be able to plan for the obstacles or prevent them from happening at all? There's then two final follow-up questions. Why is the goal or the outcome important? So, what is the purpose or the meaning or the deeper reason for wanting this thing in the first place? And then, who is it that we can get to support us on this journey? So you ask those 6 questions in that order, and that will help you to reach your goals.
One of the things that your book touches on, which I found was very interesting, is this idea of toxic positivity. And I think a lot of people are hearing that right now. So, how can someone balance acknowledging their pain while still moving forward with hope?
Thank you for addressing this and for speaking to this. People often bypass what they're really feeling. And this is a big misconception with positive psychology because it can be easy to think that it's just about the positive emotion. And if something bad or hard or something that has a more dense emotional resonance to it, these challenging life things happen, we don't have to just say, okay, well, just look on the bright side. Let's keep going anyway. There's value in that sometimes. But what happens is if we continue to override the feeling that we have inside, there's a separation. There's a lack of really looking at and being in and feeling the emotions that are so, so valuable for us. So actually, the practice is feeling the emotion, understanding what it is that it's teaching us, what it is that it's saying, where we feel it in our body, allowing it to move through and be processed in the body, and then looking at what is it that I've learned from this experience? What is the silver lining? But it's not skipping the step in the process. So we have the hope. We know that we can do more and we can move faster towards our goals by being optimistic, but we're also being real. We're also allowing all of life's experience to be valid and be valuable for us as well.
In your book, you share about post traumatic growth. What is that, and how does that fit within this discussion?
So we think about the ability to bounce back from hard experiences. You've probably heard that before. You've probably heard about resilience. So your ability to dig into that grittiness, that just keep going. And again, this is valid. We do need resiliency. We need to continue to improve our coping mechanisms and our inner kind of scaffolding, but there's something that is way more exciting than just bouncing back. And it's this concept and this knowing that we don't have to just bounce back to who we were and where we were, but we can go on to grow bigger, brighter, stronger, and better futures and be better than we ever were before. So, this science of positive psychology and the science of post traumatic growth teaches us that actually we develop and we broaden our psychological, emotional, and internal resources through challenge, because of challenge, and not just in spite of it. So I think this allows us to have more of a affinity And it helps us to really understand that struggle is temporary, there's value in it. And actually, because of it, we can go on to be better than ever before. And I think that in itself gives us more hope.
So, for those people out there that feel completely disconnected or alone, what is one way they can start building a sense of connection?
Mm. So, first of all, it's connection with yourself. So, it's starting to understand what it is that you're feeling and what it is that feels accessible for you. So, connection with yourself might start with just remembering to breathe. So, even a couple of minutes of breathing or a couple of long, deep breaths where you're focusing on actually having a longer exhale compared with your inhale can get you out of overwhelm. It can calm your nervous system and it can develop that connection with yourself and your body. When you're looking at how you can connect with others, this might be somebody that you decide to have as an accountability partner. It might be your safe person. You don't need everybody to be your safe person, you just need one. And I know that I really valued this when I was struggling because it felt like it was very difficult to have conversations and be constantly updating everyone all of the time. It felt like it was exhausting. But I had my one person that I had a check in with, who I went for a walk with, who I committed to using these tiny tools, these making these micro moves. And that social connection really, really helped me. Another way that I love to practice positive psychology with other people is gratitude. So you might have heard of the power of being grateful and sharing three good things or writing down three good things. Gratitude is actually stronger when it's shared. So if you can find that one person that feels safe for you and you can develop a ritual where you share three wins or three good things from your day or from your week, you'll know that that boosts your well-being. It also strengthens the relationship and helps you feel more connected because of that.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And it has me kind of thinking when we talk about, I know you mentioned this in your book too, and I found it so fascinating how we can feel both grief and joy at the same time. So, if we can, as you're saying, how can people then hold these really kind of opposite emotions together?
Mm. It's knowing that all of the emotion exists in all of us and not making it wrong. So the moment that you resist the emotion or you repress it or you push it down, that's actually when it can get stuck. And there's a lot of really amazing books that look at how our body stores emotion and how that can actually transform into disease. So we want to get practice with, instead of getting that emotion stuck, how can we transform it into something that we can be processing through our body instead? So for me, grief has always come in waves. But I look at what grief is, and grief is love. Grief is the appreciation of something that once was. And I think when I changed that inside of, I transformed the emotion inside of myself. I was like, this feels painful. This feels hard. This feels heavy. And it's also symbolic of how much I loved that person, or it's symbolic of how much energy was there. And I just think that remembering the joyful moments, remembering those loving memories, remembering how it felt, whilst it feels bittersweet, it allows more of a releasing rather than making the emotion wrong, which can mean that it gets stuck.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And for our listeners right now that are struggling just to keep going, I mean, because a lot of times people are feeling like it's just such a challenge to move through the day. What's one small step that they can take with them today to move towards hope?
Remembering that if you're struggling right now, you don't need to fix the whole picture. You don't need to fix your whole life today. It is just remembering that one tool or one shift or one reason, one step in the right direction, asking yourself the question, what's one thing that I can do to feel 1% better today? A tiny little bit will help to reduce that overwhelm and start to build momentum. So I think it's you checking in with how you're feeling and developing a practice of checking in with each other. So instead of asking someone, how are you feeling? And then responding, oh, I'm fine. I would love to ask, how are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? So once you name it, you can start to shift it and you can ask yourself, okay, what would make me, if I'm a 6 out of 10 now or I'm a 3 out of 10, what would take me one step closer to being one rating higher on that scale? And that might be something like checking in with reminders of reasons to live. So it's because you've got friends and you've got family that love you, because you might miss out on an amazing sunset or sunrise. It is knowing that you can do something that can take just a moment to connect in with something that feels good. And that micro shift will create progress over time.
Well, Nick, you're such an inspiration. Where can our listeners go to learn more about your work, be part of your community, and also get your book?
So the book's available in all major bookstores and on Amazon as well. You can grab it from my website, which is niycpidgeon.com. And I love hanging out on social media on LinkedIn and Instagram as well.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Nick. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, One More Day. If you or anyone you know is thinking about suicide and needs help, please call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. Again, you pick up any phone and dial 988. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.